Excalibur at Valleyfair is one of the weirdest coasters out there. This arrow creation uses the track and trains of a mine train, but the ride instead focuses on speed and power. While the ride experience is undeniably unique, the coaster may be nearing the end of its life. Find out everything you need to know about Excalibur in this review. Excalibur opened back in 1989 as the park's tallest and fastest roller coaster. This ride's placement has been both a blessing and a curse throughout its history. Excalibur was placed in the very back of the park. It's not only a dead end, but it is an egregious dead end. The only way to access the ride is to travel through a tunnel under a service road. Excalibur and the Thunder Canyon River Rapids rides are the only two attractions in this back section. It is an absolute hike to get back there. However, this section can be closed for two reasons. One, flooding. This back section of the park is located on a floodplain, and the low points of Excalibur are particularly susceptible to flooding. Two, and more likely, is staffing. On a quiet day, this entire section can be closed. It's rare to see this ride open early and late in the season, but it does operate most days in peak summer months. But even on those days, it has a good chance of opening late and closing early. In my recent visit, the ride was open from just noon until 7 p.m., and the park was busy too. If you want to maximize your chances of riding this coaster, I recommend visiting between Memorial Day and Labor Day weekends. On the bright side, even on a busy day, Excalibur is usually a walk-on. This ride is so quiet that it doesn't even offer fast lane. It doesn't need it. So few people stick around this area of the park. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if people miss this coaster entirely because of how far back it is. Very little of this coaster can be seen from within the park's boundaries. You can only see the ride's lift hill and brake run. Then you also have this awesome entrance sign with a stone logo and sword. You used to be able to get closer to it, but someone unfortunately showed off their strength a few years ago and ripped the sword right out of it. Everything else about this coaster's layout is a mystery from the ride plaza. However, this location was deliberately selected to maximize the ride's visibility to those outside the park to attract prospective customers. Excalibur's figure 8 layout was placed adjacent to Highway 101. The park's skyline is now dominated by Wild Thing, Steel Venom, North Star, and Power Tower. But back when Excalibur opened, it was the park's tallest and most visible attraction. Now it's one of the most rumored ride removal candidates out there. Back in 2015, Valleyfair submitted expansion plans. This involved rerouting the employee road you cross under to reach Excalibur, adding new slides to Soak City Water Park, and adding a dedicated parking lot and entrance for the water park. The latter two sound like great additions to the park, but it will come at a cost. These will be placed in the site of Excalibur. The current status of these plans are unknown. They could have been modified and or cancelled at some point, but if Excalibur was seemingly on the chopping block at one point, it's no guarantee this ride will be around much longer. As I mentioned earlier, Excalibur uses Arrow's mine train system. You have the familiar steel track and wood supports, plus the boxy 3-car trains. Each train holds up to 30 riders. You have 5 cars, each seating up to 6 riders and 2 across seating. The ride runs 1 train most days and still has a station wait, but the park will run 2 trains on the rare days when the lines demand it. Each rider has their own individual seatbelt and lap bar combination. These U-bars have very little padding, so it can be a little uncomfortable when you get airtime in this ride. And trust me, you will get airtime. It's a similar comfort issue to Cedar Point's Gemini or Magnum. Excalibur has also undergone a few modifications throughout its history. The most notable change was the removal of a bunny hill after the first drop. Now it's just a straightaway. There is very little footage of this hill, but you can see it in the background of a primetime live segment on roller coasters from 1990. This hill likely gave some insane ejector airtime considering its size and speed, but it put a ton of stress on the track and was ultimately removed after just a season. The entry into the first turnaround was also modified to have a smoother and less jarring entry. Excalibur also has trims on its first drop. Now I've seen some reports stating the trims were added a few years after the ride opened. However, in that same primetime live segment, you can see the trims present on the drop, so they were clearly there in the ride's early life. This was to presumably limit the speed at which you took the now removed bunny hill and the later elements. Finally, Excalibur was retracked sometime after 1999. You can see the switch from old to new Aero Steel track when you compare POVs before and after 1999. This was presumably to create a smoother ride experience. Excalibur is still a janky ride today. The sharp transitions are rough around the edges, but I don't consider the ride rough or uncomfortable, at least by my standards. Once dispatched, you'll hear an employee without fail recite, "Da da da da, charge." Sometimes the employee will get into it. Other times, the employee will say it so apathetically that I cannot help but laugh. Excalibur begins by turning out of the station and ascending a 100-foot or 30-meter tall lift hill along the highway. You don't get the best view of the park because you're facing away from it, but once at the top, you head down the 105-foot or 32-meter tall drop. And this drop offers some really bizarre forces. The start of the drop is trimmed, so you don't get airtime over the top. You feel the train being held back, but the drop just keeps getting steeper until it reaches the max angle of descent of 60 degrees, and once the train clears the trims, those in the back get a delayed and very powerful burst of ejector airtime. It rides so differently than any other first drop out there that it always catches me off guard. This drop is the main reason I prefer to ride this coaster in the back. You then zip along a subterranean stretch of straight track where the bunny hill once stood. You feel every bit of the ride's 55 mph or 88 km/h top speed. You also will feel some bumps. You'll feel this shaking in most of the ride's valleys. Next is a giant turnaround. While the entry was smoothed out over the years, the apex of the element still gives a surprise lateral jolt, particularly for those up front. If you're in back, you'll get some laterals and substantial pull in the descent. This element rides so much differently than the perfectly profiled and fluid turnarounds in today's coasters. It has a lot more character to it. You then navigate a speedy low-to-the-ground turn. You get some weak laterals into it, while also building up a good amount of positive G's in speed. There are some bumps though, like the first valley, but it's still a fun element. This turn leads into an S-hill over the turnaround's pullout. Those up front get decent ejector airtime. I remember this hill giving ejector for those in the back as well in 2019, but was giving strong floater for me in 2022 in the back. But the airtime was still substantial, so I didn't mind. You then navigate a fairly tame turnaround under the first turnaround. It's light on the forces unless you count shimmying, but it does offer some nice head choppers with the wood supports. Next is a bunny hill. It gives weak floater airtime up front. Towards the back, you only get marginally lifted out of your seat. It's far less intense than a prior S-hill. You then turn upwards into the brake run, getting some minor laterals along the way. You then hit the brakes, round a corner, and return to the station. This ends the 2,415-foot or 736-meter long coaster. Excalibur definitely feels short, especially because of how quickly you charge through the layout. It's amazing to think just how crazy this ride would have been if it ran untrimmed. So what would I rate Excalibur? I would give this unique coaster a 7 out of 10. The ride is raw and unrefined. It isn't the smoothest, nor do all the elements hit. But I absolutely love this ride's first drop in S-Hill. Then the ride has a great sense of speed, especially since it has a lot of sections that hug the ground. And there really isn't a comparable coaster or experience out there. Excalibur isn't for everyone, but I genuinely like this ride's quirkiness. But should it be removed? I honestly think Valleyfair could find better use for the land. It's hard to argue water park reinforcements wouldn't be more well received by most guests than an old coaster that many perceive to be rough. I hope the ride sticks around and Valleyfair can add expansions elsewhere in the park, but I still have a feeling this ride doesn't have much time left. So those are my thoughts on Excalibur. Do you like this janky ride as much as me? Or do you want to see it removed for an expansion? Let me know your thoughts on this ride down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.